Seeing the flashes on your screen. As we have just learned, the cabinet has approved the RDA, the Railway Development Authority. One of the mandates of this institution is going to be to set fares. So an independent authority that is going to set tariffs, including passenger tariffs. For more perspective on this development, in fact, let's get you some of the details. Joining us now to discuss this further is Dinesh Trivedi, former Railways Minister. Good evening, sir. Good to have you on What's Hot. Your first thoughts, this is something that was declared as an intent by the Railway Minister, in the budget, and now it's finally coming to its fruition. How do you read the development?
Well, first of all, I do not have the details of it, but often, as far as tariff is concerned, if you remember in my budget of 2012, I had proposed a tariff authority because tariff was becoming too political issue. And so it's not a new idea. I had initiated it. Having said that, as far as the development authority is concerned, what little bit I understand, this also will give access to tracks. And this authority will decide on the private players to come on the track. In other words, you can have a Rajdhani with 4 of the private coaches, which they can charge their own, they can do their own reservation, they can have a different service. I think that may not be a great idea because India is a poor country and you cannot differentiate so much between 2 services. And then virtually railway is out of Parliament of India, so might as well abolish the railway ministry and have a Ministry of Transportation. So the Parliament accountability of the railway is over because, first of all, the budget is gone. Second, not Railway Tariff Authority, Railway Development Authority means access to track. Please understand. So it is a camouflage way of, and I'm not really commenting whether it's good or bad, but in a poor country like India, this is the first step towards privatization of railways.
Okay, Mr. Trivedi, but before we go into the details, I agree that this is the first step of privatization towards the railways. The key portion here will be, and the line that is being pointed out is the RTA will be formulating tariff as well as freight tariff determination norms. While the details on how it will work is not given out, how do you create that level playing tariff and freight rates across the board? Can you take us through what the nuances would be here?
See, first of all, the market forces will decide. As it is, the tariff of the passenger and goods is so high that people are shifting from rail to road, including the passengers. For the first time, the number of passengers are getting lesser. And they're preferring Volvo, maybe paying little extra to Volvo services because of the dependability. So what I'm trying to say that you are not going to achieve too much. But yes, this is first step towards privatization. And I don't think
sir, allow me to come in over there to the point that you're making that, is this really the first step towards privatization of the railways? And I'm reading from the cabinet release, which we have here with us. And it says that this RDA is going to act within the parameters of the Railway Act 1989 and undertake the following functions: tariff determination, ensuring fair play and level playing field for all the stakeholders, setting efficiency and performance standards, etc. It's saying that it's going to be within the Railway Act of 1989. Then would you still say that this seems like the first step towards privatization?
Yeah, because that act doesn't say that they cannot give it to a private player. The act, nowhere it says. So fair play, level playing field, these are all very good sounding words. Mind you, I'm not commenting on anything whether it's good, bad or ugly. All I'm saying is if I were the Prime Minister of India, I would have said that infrastructure has to be created by the government because no private player will put in money to create that huge infrastructure like in roads, like in bridges, because the returns will come after 100 years.
Correct, but Mr. Trivedi, how do you see the private players coming in then? The point that's going to be made right now.
Just listen, I'm telling you, in the Rail Development Authority, there is something called access to tracks. If you read, if I remember correctly, there is some access to track which will be decided by this Rail Development Authority. So they will give permission that who will have the access to track. So tomorrow if I apply for it, that listen, as it is you have private rails, you have private goods trains. That also comes under the Rail Act.
I have a question. Mr. Trivedi, I also have a question regarding this new regulator which has been set up. Firstly, one of the objectives, according to our sources, was to depoliticize fare both on passenger as well as on freight. Now, how realistic is this? Can rail freight and especially passenger fares, will the authority have that much independence to determine tariff fares, especially for the passenger segment? Because the losses are huge in that segment.
You know, as it is now also, without this tariff authority, now it's almost they're increasing, decreasing. You see, if you remember, when you increase the price of petroleum or diesel, they used to hue and cry, even if it was 20 paisa. But now nobody is bothered. You know, you increase 3 rupees, decrease 5 rupees. So now also within the same system, you don't have to go to parliament to increase your fare or freight. So, you know, and now it is depoliticized already because more or less people, political parties have written off railway in the sense that...
But
I think we've lost Mr. Trivedi on the line. Ritu, if you've been able to go into the fine print of the Act, which is just of the details, how would it work? Are there any details that you've been able to pick up from your sources? Because the fact is, and that's what you pointed out right now, that how do you create that level playing field where both freight and passenger rates are on an even keel?
Well, one of the issues that was impacting the freight rates, one of the highest in the world, was the cross-subsidization. Because the freight subsidizes, cross-subsidizes passengers, we have one of the highest freight rates in India. Now, having said that, the details that have emerged, and according to my colleague Ashpreet, the process to select the panel starts by the end of April. And then we have, according to sources, the authority will be functional by August 2017. So if you can also tell us, now we have in the telecom sector a regulator like TRAI, which then gives and recommends its take on tariffs. Now, do you think a similar mechanism will also be followed while pursuing changes to tariffs, because the government is saying that this is a sectoral regulator? So do we see a similar kind of a mechanism as we see it, for example, in the telecom sector with TRAI? Will the RDA function in the same way?
You think, please understand the basic principle. The basic principle is very simple, which is tariff is now taken out of Parliament of India. It's come up, it is taken out of the Parliament of India, and Parliament of India has nothing to do with tariff. That is the basic principle. And it is already depoliticized, because now also when you increase fare and freight, nobody is bothered. Have you seen any hue and cry? So much of fare has been increased. There's no hue and cry. Dynamic fare has come.
But dynamic fare is for only a particular sector. This basically encompasses the entire gamut of different categories of passenger services.
That's what I'm telling you, that now it's not going to make a difference. As it is, it's already depoliticized. When in the last few years, tariff and fare and all is totally depoliticized because there is no hue and cry. So I had myself set up in my budget speech that this is going to be depoliticized that way. So I am not commenting whether it's good or bad. All I'm trying to suggest is now the entire railway has been taken out of the accountability of Parliament.
Okay, Sir, Mr. Trivedi, allow me to come in over there. One basic question is, isn't that a good thing? If, this is not going to be the subject of political sort of whims, tariff setting, that's one small question. I'll just throw some numbers out here so that viewers have the latest data. We're talking about highest ever record freight revenue of 1.67 lakh crores for the fiscal that has just ended. The total volume of goods carried, 1,107 million tons, exceeding the freight target. At the same time, I'm also reading a lot about the criticism of this dynamic pricing, because there have been times that premium trains like the Rajdhani, etc.
Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
The total freight, tonnage and even miles, you are reading a wrong data. It has gone down. It has gone down substantially as per target. It has actually in real terms, because the main freight which was being carried was coal. And the coal movement has virtually stopped because now you have powerhouses on the pit head.
Sir,
it may not be.
Sir, I take your point. I was talking about the revised targets. But anyway, very quickly, before we, run out of time, your prescription, sir, as this new tariff authority will, start and going about the task of fixing fares and functioning independently, what would be your recipe or your mantra to them?
My mantra is this is not going to make railway system very efficient. Nothing is going to change. It's only, please understand, it's going to be out of the accountability of Parliament that nobody is there to question, because it's the regulatory authority has done. Is it going to increase the capacity?
Mr. Trivedi, if nothing is going to change, what does it mean for consumers? Very quickly, we're completely out of time.
Consumer will have to pay a little more price. That's all.
Exactly. For the viewers that are watching, essentially, we'll end up paying more if you're traveling by rail.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. We'll leave it at that. It's time for a very short break. We will